I go to investor events, they understand the differences between tokenization and crypto, but I know that the end users still lump them both together and they can't distinguish between the two. What is your view, first of all, on today's security token tokenization view, and then 2024, what are your predictions for it? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tokenized. Joining me today, a returning guest, Brian Esposito, and we're going to talk about what's been going on in his world. A lot of changes since the last time we talked, Brian, and why don't we just jump into them? You've gone public. What's going on? What's happened? What's transpired?
I have, Mark. Thanks for having me back, and thank you for all the great work and education that you put out in the market. So I'm a big supporter and reader of everything that you do. Yeah, honored. It's a culmination of my life's career. It's 23 plus years as an entrepreneur, and my history since our last conversation. In August of this year, I was honored to be asked to take a CEO role of a public company known as Diamond Lake Minerals. Ticker symbol is DLMI. And what we've done is put out great optics at the new strategy and structure and where I'm taking this company. We're building an old school GE conglomerate parent umbrella, industry agnostic across multiple different industries as subsidiaries. So multi-strategy operating company, identifying, acquiring, and starting companies. And if you look at what I've done in my private career with my own holding companies, we're probably going to be replicating a lot of the industries and support and resources that I have built over the years there. And the idea is build these companies up, get them very strong, very profitable, strong advocate for distributions to our shareholders, and then getting those companies into a position where they're so strong and have so much support and can stand alone to have their own IPO moment, or stay in the umbrella and continue to reward our shareholders and grow. Where it gets interesting, and through my history and experience as well as you, Mark, is that these subsidiaries will have security token offerings through our partnership with INX to offer further additional capital support to investors around the globe. So we are bridging the gap between the traditional stock securities and what we believe and we know is the future of securities and digital assets through security token offerings.
So, Brian, now that you've gone public, what does that have to do with the security tokens? Are you going to tokenize those shares and then sell them on security token exchanges? What's the whole plan, the long-term plan for, at least on the tokenization side?
Of course. Well, the current philosophy and model is not tokenizing the shares, but it's actually tokenizing business units within our subsidiaries. So there'll be an attachment to some revenue generating mechanism within the subsidiaries that we would go out to the public markets with through INX and offer participation in those businesses to a global audience. That's the phase that we're going to be rolling this into, as far as how do we open up the holdings of a public company to allow investors, whether they're accredited or non-accredited through INX's platform, to be able to say, hey, I would love to be part of that company. Look at what they're doing. I don't live in the US. I can't buy their stock. So you watch it from afar, but you knew that was going to be something. Now you can actually have some involvement in what we're doing, and your capital and your support helps fuel our growth in those companies and those business units, helps our balance sheets. So it also offsets the idea of volatile stock prices. What I want and what we're building here is a very strong, very healthy, sustainable growth company. Our float is extremely low on our offering with our DLMI stock. It's another reason why I love this vehicle, because if we perform the way we want to perform, and we're really providing so much value to our shareholders and to our security token holders, and myself as well as a supporter and believer and shareholder in DLMI, I want this to be a security that I never want to get rid of. There's nothing better out in the market to transition to. And it's also a security or a security token that I hold that pays me and my shareholders a dividend or a yield or a revenue share of some sort. So with those theories in place, you have a really coveted stock or a coveted security token, one that performs and pays you a dividend yield or a revenue share, something that you don't want to get rid of. And therefore, very low supply of sellers, very high demand of buyers that want in. In theory, you should have a Berkshire Hathaway Class A stock on your hands. So, these are things that have not, doing things that have been done before in history, but with the idea of what does the future of capitalization look like, and what does the future of a global investor look like, and attaching a security token to our offerings is just the right path to the future of how do you bring in capital and how do you get people to be part of something special.
All right, Brian. So, I know it's been a while since we've talked, and this industry for me has moved forward pretty quickly, given that crypto seems to be collapsing a little bit, not from a Bitcoin, certainly not from an Ethereum, not from the top 10 tokens point of view, but just in terms of new coins being issued. Seems like all the talk to me is on tokenization, but I'm kind of inside baseball on this.
Yeah.
I go to investor events, they understand the differences between tokenization and crypto, but I know that the end users still lump them both together and they can't distinguish between the two. What is your view, first of all, on today's view, security tokenization view, and then 2024, what are your predictions for it?
Well, it's definitely getting stronger, and people are becoming more educated on what the difference is, but there's still a lag. That was one of the big reasons why I was excited to take over DLMI, was because we had a opportunity to say, hey, we understand you don't trust the space for whatever reason. We understand that you're intimidated by downloading a digital wallet, moving assets into it. You hear about these horror cases where everything gets stripped because people click on the wrong link, or maybe you don't want to go through the KYC process on an exchange that you're not familiar with, but you know how to go on Charles Schwab, you know how to call your broker, you know how to buy a stock. And that's why we were positioning the optics of DLMI to be that missing piece where, hey, you hear about the space everywhere you go. You can't avoid it, right? You go on Twitter, you go on, or X, you go on any social media platform, you go to any dinner party, people are talking about it. And you want to be involved because it's exciting. So here's an easy way to get involved, is buy a stock. And we want to position ourselves as that model that other public companies replicate. So that's my excitement, to show the world what we've done and have it be replicated correctly in a regulatory environment. So the important thing is things that you're doing, Mark, right? Educating people, putting out newsletters, talking about it, explaining what the differences are, explaining that through a security token offering or tokenization in this model, you're protected. It's much like you're buying a stock or a bond. It's the same laws and regulations. Another one of my companies I'm honored to be part of is FinTech TV, with Vince Molinari as their CEO, seasoned, working with FINRA and the SEC, always operating in a regulatory environment.
FinTech TV, the only global media platform focused on blockchain, digital assets, and sustainability. We are the first FinTech channel focused on topics and issues that matter to Gen Z, Millennials, and Gen Xers. Our 24/7 channel, launching now, is being syndicated to OTT platforms around the world.
FinTech TV operates on the floors of major stock exchanges like the NYSE. So think of them like a CNBC, a Bloomberg, a Fox Business, broadcasting 24/7. So having access to these exchanges, talking about security tokens, talking about digital assets, or tokenizing real estate, tokenizing physical gold or silver, these are the things that have to keep happening to let people understand that this isn't going away. This is the evolution of transactions and finance, and where we're going with life, and how to be able to pay for things, how to be able to increase wealth preservation and wealth enhancement. This is a position of your portfolio that you need to be in, but you always have to do your due diligence. You always have to look into projects that you believe have well-seasoned teams, great support, and in a market or an industry that you believe there's value in. At the end of the day, you always have to do your work. And you always have to have some appetite for risk, because it is highly volatile, like anything else. And there's always global corrections. There's always industries that go through these moments of highs and lows. And this is another industry that's going through that, as well as it being in its infancy. So there's a lot of excitement and learning that has to go across the board as to how does this continue to evolve. And like you, we want to be positioned there as an authority, helping people navigate through it and de-risking their participation as much as possible.
What do you think of the top three things that need to happen before this becomes mainstream? I mean, I'll give you mine. One is we've got to make sure there's enough liquidity there. And we're personally working on that through automated market makers and creating infrastructure to kind of support that. I think two is awareness that, there's no intermediary when you're buying security tokens, but you still have to do your due diligence. It's not like anything else, but there's no analyst community around it. So it's like, how do I know if this is a good token or not? And then, I'd probably say number three is that we haven't seen a major project that people can say and point to, hey, I know that was a security token project and look how well it did. But those are my three. What are yours?
No, grade three. I mean, I for reasons to have a good show and discussion, I'll change it a little bit, but yours are spot on. I think the liquidity is important in the secondary market. Those are some of the things
Yes.
that we're building and working on as far as how do you move your fractional ownership in whatever that asset is out. But also, I aim with what we're building as to I look at liquidity a little bit differently. I want you to be able to earn while you're holding our stock or our security token. So I want you to always be in it with me. But it's nice to have an exit if you need it for whatever reason. And you know, from my standpoint, I assumed that after, and I hate bringing up anything negative, but after FTX collapsed, I was like, okay, this is the moment where everything goes all in on security tokens
Yeah.
because you're in a digital asset class. It's protected by current rules and regulations and laws. And here we go. Didn't happen. So with that idea of not knowing when that's going to happen, that's why I went all in on this public vehicle as what I believe is the next step into getting where we both want that masses in the movement. I believe the only way that truly happens is if you log on to your Charles Schwab account or your brokerage account, or your broker calls you and says, hey, we got a security token offering in this asset. Do you want to buy in? That's when it goes mainstream.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you got great exchanges and incredible seasoned business people like at INX, even the people at T0 and Securitize. They're all trying to be well positioned to put great offerings out in the market and do it correctly. We're all in on INX. I love that team, and they have the full support of Republic now as an investor, and those 3 million plus retail investors, and those offerings that Republic already put out in the market. And they did a Republic note through INX that was very successful when they issued that into the market. So having that as an intermediary until you can get it through Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, Fidelity. Like that's when it's easy for people because they've spent their decades going online, buying and trading stocks or bonds. They deal with their brokers, so it's familiarity. The biggest issue with anything, even if it's a new product offering or a piece of IP that you want to sell, it's got to be frictionless. So until it becomes frictionless, then you're not going to get such giant movements like we're all Jones in the sea. And the only way it becomes frictionless is if it gets tied into your current familiarity processes in buying stocks and bonds.
Yeah. And I think you're spot on. I mean, as soon as it's next to stocks on E-Trade and some of the other places that people go to buy them right now. But also, I'd like to see some more institutional involvement because I think that's where the majority of the stocks are traded anyway.
I love that you said that because I want to see that so you feel comfortable that your bank's not going to turn you off, because that's when you know you're okay to be able to play in these spaces. But then I have to voice this, and then it's only offered to the 1%ers of the world again. Isn't the idea of tokenization to allow the global community to be able to buy into something they never had access to? So once the institutions come in, they're going to buy up all the good projects and properties and then package it and resell it to their audiences and their clients. So I'm catch 22 on that. I want to see the adoption because it helps support this, but it's also going to alienate people from being able to have the idea of wealth preservation and wealth enhancement into things that they never had the opportunity to be in before.
Well, I'm all for democratization of some of these projects, like you said, that unless you had $50 million, you weren't able to participate in. And I hadn't thought about the institutionals going in and buying all the good stuff. I would hope that's not the case. I could be wrong. I hope they're and I pray that and the other thing they could do is just drive up the price so much that you price most people out of it.
Priced out, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that's not the case, that there'll be enough tokenization projects where the institutions can't possibly buy them globally. And remember, this is now a global market. It's not a US market.
Right.
You can literally buy it anywhere in the world. So I think that brings money to places that never had it before. I think it brings investors opportunities that they don't have right now. I mean, try buying something on the coast of Africa, which a lot of people say is going to be the next boom in real estate prices, is beachfront property in Africa. There's a whole political side to things, but you and I trying to buy property in Africa right now would be a nightmare. It would just
be a little difficult, but I have this post-it note that says I own this piece of property.
But if you had a legal token
Yeah.
that had a legal interest in that property, and
Correct.
assuming the government was halfway, let's say non-corrupt,
Right.
then you could make a mint on something like that, and something you couldn't participate in before. So it opens up,
Right.
I think, doors for everybody, and I think that's the way it's going to play out. I do believe what you said, and having thought about it for the 5 seconds that I have, that institutions will go in and buy all the good stuff, but um, let's
Or at
hope.
least majority of. Yeah, I like to see, who knows where these offerings go. There might be
Yeah.
guardrails put in place where you can only own an X amount of percentage of something. It all depends on the offering and what the details of that are. But listen, money, rich get richer, and when you have that dry powder on the sideline, and an asset class comes to market through this tokenization mechanism, that smart money's going to go and grab it, and then like you said, people are going to priced out. But I don't want to talk doom and gloom. I just have to look at it in reality of, oh, this is great that institutions are getting behind this. This is great that Bitcoin ETF is going through the process of being rolled out. But then it's also like, well, there you go. Now it's in the system,
Yeah, but
right?
those of us that own Bitcoin are
Right.
pretty happy about it. So if you get in early, then you could do quite well, because I'm one of the believers that you have the halving coming up as well. And again, I'm not a big crypto guy anymore, just because I've seen a lot of fraud.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin, Ethereum, there's still some I really believe in, and some layer twos as well, that are really doing real valuable things with intrinsic value that I still think are worthwhile. Even though Gary Gensler and half of the SEC are making it very confusing for people right now. And based on what I saw with the Coinbase letter yesterday, they don't give a shit. And it's pretty sad that they're just ignoring calls from people like us, even in the tokenization field, who think we're following the law. Hey, how about some clarity here? We're not orange groves. We are businesses that are interacting with decentralized markets globally, as well as at home here, doing some fun, creative stuff with smart contracts that was never anticipated by a law. The laws, but
No, well, the sad thing to see is, we lost our stance on innovation. Once Silicon Valley
yeah,
Bank was targeted, Silvergate and Signature Bank,
yeah,
it's sad. Now it's in UAE, Middle East, even London. There's Singapore, obviously. There's certain regions that are very inviting to the future of technology and blockchain and tokenization of assets and monetizing those assets and their legal frameworks and regulatory.
no question.
And it's a shame. We could have owned the world in that space as a U.S. Superpower, but it is what it is. We just have to operate and maneuver within the eyes of the law, and do what we can to have our piece of this. Got to future proof anything. You got to adapt or die. If you don't, you die. That's the
Yeah.
reality.
I couldn't agree more, and I think Gensler's protecting his old buddies, especially at Goldman Sachs, until they get caught up, and then be a free for all. But you did mention the UAE. That's where I recommend people go. There's a license. You could choose your own regulations in Dubai, by the way, or the UAE in general. I recommend you guys check out the VARA license.
Hmm.
That's the one that we are going for, and it provides a very clear legal framework for things like secondary markets and DeFi. I mean, nobody else is doing that in the world. So, I mean, that I'm aware of. Maybe Switzerland, maybe Singapore, but I've talked to them specifically, and I have a very good comfort level with what they're doing.
I agree.
So, anything else, Brian, that you want to bring up before we sign off here?
Well, I really appreciate your time, Mark. It's great to speak with you. Another thing to keep an eye out within my company of holdings is a company called Lode, LODE. So LODE.1 is the website, and it's fractional digital ownership in physical gold and silver. So the momentum there is strong, incredibly seasoned team leading that forward and then growing that community on a global basis. And I believe back in the day, to be a landowner was when you were like, you felt proud and like you made it. So I think there's just too many people on the planet for that to be a reality. So I do believe if you can have ownership in this type of fashion in gold and silver, you can feel that sense of pride. It's something that people around the world can understand, because trading gold and silver early on as humanity as a value system for buying and selling and trading things, and going back to that, but in the digital environment, is pretty exciting. So I think obviously real estate's a massive asset class for tokenization. It's going to do quite well. But I think for the regular person out in the world to be able to buy gold or silver through these types of blockchain mechanisms and have a digital wallet where you can appreciate your wealth, you can utilize that to convert it to a fiat currency or transact in your local economy. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And I think this is what can really help empower people around the world.
It's time you made the switch to adapt, to improve, and to transition towards a better future. Switch towards a life of financial freedom, staying ahead, living your best life, and having better control over your money. The Load Wallet helps you make the right switch by giving you access to a more reliable, inflation-resistant money you can trust. Money backed by silver and gold that empowers your businesses to eliminate expensive fees and settle payments instantly, and preserves your wealth for generations to come.
Well, let's take a quick detour on that, just so people know. Most people that listen to this or watch this are familiar with PAX-G. What are the advantages of investing in in Load versus a PAX-G?
Well, you have anybody with a digital wallet can go into the Load infrastructure and buy up to 9 decimal points, some sort of ownership in gold and silver. So if you have $1, you can throw it into that and actually be in that system and have a sense of pride, a sense of ownership. And then as that appreciates in the real world, so does your asset, your digital asset in that. Also with the Load model, they will be acquiring processing plants. So they'll be able to buy and own physical silver much cheaper than the market. So you have, I think, a 20 or 30% arbitrage. So now if you're in that system and you're holding that token, there's the ability to earn off of that token based on the spread from the processing of those materials to selling them into the market or selling them to Load's customers.
Okay. And also it's more of a direct ownership, like you said, not a fund or something backed. The fund shares are backed by gold. So it's a different model. It's the difference between a REIT where you buy into the REIT and then you own a portfolio, and then where you buy as an LP directly into a real estate project, I suppose. I mean, maybe
correct. And there's a physical vault of those precious metals too that you actually own a piece of. So you're part of actually something backed by something, which currency used to be back in the day.
All right. With that, Brian, thank you very much. Pleasure having you.
Thanks, Mark.
Hello, Kryptonized fans. I've got a token for you. We've had a lot of tokens come on the show. Some we like, some we don't. But we really like Tetragard. Why? Because it is a wrapped coin with PAX-G, with Ethereum, Bitcoin, and this rewards token called Quadrant. So you get it all wrapped up in kind of a one-click buy at the website below. And if you hold on to it, you get rewards that you could sell back to the Ethereum blockchain and get more Ethereum just for holding what I'd liken to an ETF. So again, it's Tetragard. Check it out. This is a no-brainer to invest in, especially what's going on in this world.